Hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm super excited to chat with you, Nico. I know that you have a pretty impressive background and history. I'd love for you to kind of just share how you got to where you are now in your career.
Yeah, for sure. So I was working at Nike back then, and then I was living in Amsterdam actually. I was working there, and then you know, Kettle Fire was looking for someone that was like hands on keyboard, being able to optimize their DTC side from by running A/B testing. Back then, there was like when Kettle and Fire was still like a DTC focus, so all around like A/B testing. Let's try to optimize every single like action that the users take on the site. Wilson Hung back then, he reached out and he said, "Hey, do you want to do a few hours for us? Do you want to support us to run like any campaign with uh, what was the name? PO, the A/B testing like tool." Then from there, I said, "Yeah, for sure." So I joined part-time first, and then full-time by managing, managing all of this like testing ecosystem. Then from there, I started to own like the DTC portion. So I was in charge of like the e-com from like project management, development, performance, etc. Then from there, I expanded into like Amazon, and after Amazon, because like the business was shifting toward retail, the majority of the growth was coming from the retail. Also, I adapt my role accordingly. Given my background in like performance, etc., I started to own more around like retail media and everything that is digital. And from there, then I started to own or oversee, let's say, DTC, Amazon, and retail media, omnichannel across the board for the organization from like offline to online. And that's here I am now.
I love it, man. I love it. Kettle and Fire is this really I love your products. I partake in them myself, but I think it's a really unique um, brand for so many reasons because it's a it's well known for bone broth, right? At least in the States. It's got like this kind of cult following here, where it's like people that are serious about bone broth drink Kettle and Fire, and people that aren't drink whatever else. I'm curious since you've come in, how have you kind of built out the brand in such a way that it's really enabled it to thrive in a kind of niche market that actually has a huge following?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of funny like looking into this, but um, we always been very performance driven as an organization. We were trying to optimize everything that we were doing like online. But I think the core comes down to the quality of the product. And today on LinkedIn, I was like mentioning something about that. Probably I was like, my post was going live saying, what did I say? Because it's something I wrote like over the weekend, something like, the paid social just amplify the quality of your product, right?
Right.
Something along those lines. But basically, what I'm trying to say is like, if your product is like a good product with good quality ingredients, that people are gonna recognize that. And how are they gonna recognize that? They're gonna try your product. So you might gonna invest a little bit heavier at the beginning in order to make people try, but then they're gonna stick around. Then they're gonna keep like buying your product in the long term. So what we notice is that also by partnering with like really good and key influencers along the line, going very heavy with like influencer marketing and partnership, really amplify the messages across the whole, across United States. And a lot of people following those like creators and influencers really kind of understood that our quality is like above any other like product in the market. So then from there, I can say that was a little bit easier, to kind of market the product. And also like you can see that from even from conversion rate or like on, from a raw standpoint on certain channels, because you actually see that the product converts. So people searching for bone broth, then click on our product and make the purchase. So it's not that people are like browsing around. So the feeling that I had is that the message over the year remained consistent. We change our branding, our design, etc. Of course, try to kind of get more into the details and try to elevate our how the brand was perceived outside. But the core, I think, was always there, which is like a good quality product.
Yeah, I think that's so key, man. And I know that it's not just about there are a lot of quality products that are out there. I think that one of the things that you've done so well, Nico, is like you've really run some brilliant campaigns to really push forward that idea and get people that are have heard of Kettle and Fire, have been drinking bone broth to switch brands, to make a move. What are some of the campaigns that stick out in your mind that have really been impactful, or some of the tactics that you've used to really get traction? Because you are looking for performance. You're not just looking for a branded experience. You're trying to get a conversion. And everybody that's listening to this or watching it, they all want the same. So, what are some of the things that you've done that you've just found to be massively helpful?
Yeah, so at the beginning, I'd say always like we always try to be like I said, very performance oriented. So when you are a kind of a smaller brand, limited budget, we always try to go after performance and optimize everything within a campaign in order to kind of move the needle and convert as many customers. But in the past, for example, last year, what I really like was like launching a campaign that could support not only the performance side, so not only the bottom of the funnel, but also top of the funnel. Because our goal in the long term, as we are scaling, is expand that pool of audience that become aware of Kettle and Fire, because we know they're going to convert then after 2, 3, 6 months to become customer, and then they're going to stick around. So what we did last year, for example, during Thanksgiving, which is like our key moment in the year, together with like January, we ran like a really massive campaign where we used multiple different like vendors, but also different strategies to target multiple type of consumer. So from running like a new campaign on streaming TV, where we layer on top like specific audiences that was people that buy within your category but doesn't buy your product. So going after new to brand was our key, was our goal, our main KPI. Try to get as many people as possible that become aware of our product and our brand. So running streaming TV as well as running like out of home, both digital out of home, static out of home, as well as like track in specific cities. So we did that in a few cities where there was like the highest concentration of for some of our top retailer, because we wanted to amplify the messaging that core cities. And then on top of that, we run a lot of course, like shopper marketing tactics, like and everything that is like retail media oriented. And during Thanksgiving, the final boost was coming during the Thanksgiving week, when potentially with Instacart we ran a big push that went like not only wasn't basically just about sponsor product and display ads, but went above and beyond this part with like push notification, email campaign, takeover, banner takeover, co-branded with three different brands in order to always amplify our audience. So during Q4 last year for the Thanksgiving campaign, so the cooking season for us, which is very important, the goal was like going from offline to online and trying to get like massive exposure across like multiple area or multiple like channel where we know that our core demographic lives. For example, Instacart is like very well known for people that are usually like a female targeting audience, or like very health oriented, etc. So that's our core demographic that maybe we're going to try to go after again this year, etc. So, but that's what we did last year, and I think was a very interesting approach. On top of that, we also like launch a partnership with like the UFC last year. So that was like for us a test and learn situation where we wanted to expand the audience beyond like our core demographic and go after a more male oriented type of audience, more like fitness fanatic, for example. And that's where this partnership came to life, together with not only like user generated content or some streaming advertisement or like static billboard, but also with more like seeding boxes, and then a lot of even on given retailer, we kind of leverage the images of this partnership to amplify the message online.
Yeah, there's so much there, Nico, that you said that was brilliant, man. So I'm gonna try and go back and pull some out here. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about that you brought up that was just so I think a thing that a lot of people are trying to figure out, but you very eloquently spelled it out, which was people are trying to bridge the digital to the in-person experience. And you gave some examples of like, hey, we're using Instacart, we're thinking about banner ads, we're driving people to actually go make a purchase. It's not just about in caps. It's we're thinking globally and omni-channel. What are some other ways that you've been able to tie a digital experience on, as I like to say, someone's distraction rectangle, to actually making a purchase in store that leads to revenue generation? How are you driving that on a daily, weekly, monthly sort of basis?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's definitely not easy right now. I'd say it's very complicated, especially if you don't have a lot of budget. When you start to get a little bit more budget, the good thing is that you can unlock certain like perks or like the possibility to have like a full closed loop attribution. An example would be like Walmart and Trade Desk connection. You can leverage like streaming TV, Walmart audience, and have some sort of closed loop attribution about, people are seeing the ad on TV and then making a purchase in store. Or that's one way. Another way would be like, given specific like geo-target, the location of specific user, you can send some sort of push notification or send like display advertisement to those people when they are like nearby a given store. But to answer your question, regarding also the messaging, what we are trying to do is like make the message consistent between online and offline, so in store and online as well. It's not an easy path. It's getting like it's a little bit hard, I'd say, because it requires a lot of like how can I say, like a lot of um, interconnection between department to make sure that even a display in store, like a hand cap, is like matching whatever like campaign potentially we are running Q4. So we are getting there. I feel like we're getting better and better. But that's something that also we tested out last year, which was like trying to mimic the messaging and the campaign that we are, doing like online, making it in store. But then if you were to ask me, hey, are you able to kind of close the loop in the sense of like making sure that your dollar spent between like on this custom end cap generated X number of revenue? It's really tough to do that. But one way to do that is like if you do like A/B test in the sense of have like a testing number of stores with like a given end cap or like with like potentially a specific design or where you run a specific tactics. The example would be like Whole Food digital signage in store. Only for 50 Whole Food you run that digital signage, but then you leave out the other 350-ish store, and those are going to be your control group. And then with your data scientist guy, you're going to be able to understand, hey, did I actually move the needle from like a sales velocity standpoint? Yes and no, yes or no. Even if maybe sales velocity wasn't your KPI, but at least you get some sort of signal about the impact of that tactic.
Yeah, no, I think that's so smart. That's so, so good. Okay, so another thing you said earlier was you talked about, your partnership with the UFC and exploring that and saying, hey, what, is there something here that we can start to really reach outside of our core demographic and find somebody, a new audience, essentially. One of the things that I've seen from people that, myself included, when they drink Kettle and Fire, it's a lot of times as a way to help them with their health. They're thinking about more than just, hey, I want to cook with something that's a high quality product. For me and for a lot of people, it's, man, I'm trying to get some more electrolytes in. I'm trying to have good nutrition. As you've explored this, I mean, the UFC is an interesting one to pick. I'm personally a fan of UFC, so I was excited by that. But why UFC, and how are you continuing to explore, diversifying from your core audience to really find some new people that I think would be raving fans of Kettle and Fire?
Yeah, so I the UFC actually came along kind of in a funny way because we got like an organic mention happening like a couple of years ago from Dana White. And so from that moment, he mentioned, he called out like Kettle and Fire as a product. So from there, we said, oh, we actually never thought that, um, people within like the fitness community were actually a big fan, right? So that's the moment when we started to explore potentially the partnership because it was like was an eye opener like for everyone within the company. Like, oh, wow, it's so good to
So
see
wait a
that.
minute. So you got a social media mention, and that's what led you down this path.
Yeah.
I love that, man. That's so
Yeah, and
good.
sometimes I would say that sometimes that's how stuff actually happen because sometimes like you never think about a given audience unless something happened, right? Unless there is a trigger. And that was the perfect trigger, right? Like there was like, hey, we are actually interested into this product. We use the product. So we were like, let's go for it, right? Like we definitely see a fit in there. So that was like a really good thing that happened. And I would say that in the future or in the past, I'm thinking if something like this happen again, but at a smaller scale, I do think that it's gonna happen more frequently in the future. That sometimes you're gonna unlock a partnership simply because someone you never thought about is gonna mention your product and their audience or like the people that are similar to this person, could be potential buyers, and so that's a good way to kind of explore future partnerships or yeah campaigns as well.
As you're kind of looking forward into the back half of 2025, going into 2026, what are some of the things that you're excited to, new channels to turn on, new tactics to try? What are things that you're getting excited about as we're heading into another holiday season? People are going to be cooking. Like, what are the things that you're planning on and are ready for at Kettle and Fire?
Yeah, so a few things actually. One is like more, I'm really excited about, or I can see us playing really well with like in partnership with other brands as well. That's something that I would love to explore more in the future. And so think about, cooking bone broth with like with rice or with other product, right? Like doing those type of partnerships with brands that are like at a similar like scale at Kettle and Fire so that you can compensate each other from an audience standpoint or your standpoint and even content standpoint, right? Because you can build pretty like interesting content. So that's one part. So more partnerships from a product placement standpoint. Another one is also like the digital ecosystem. It's really exciting to me for me right now because I see more and more opportunities in the future to buy in-store placement digitally. So similar to, Walmart acquired Visio. So most likely sooner or later, you're going to be able to develop like advertisement in store by buying that through Trade Desk or through even the Walmart Connect platform, right? So that's what like I'm really looking forward to for the next few years. Like the ecosystem and the placement availability is going to become more and more in those like key retailers, so that for me from a like a media standpoint it's going to be very exciting to kind of try to build audiences and trying to close the loop from an attribution standpoint and run more advertisement.
When you think about kind of the things that are happening globally, when I was in the UK last month for an event, there were everybody. I would say 70% of the conversation was around tariffs and decreasing globalization and challenges in that nature. As you think about Kettle and Fire being, an international brand, is there any concern in your mind for how that plays out, or are you guys just kind of going, "Hey, no, we're fine. We're just going to keep doing what we do"? How do you guys approach kind of an unstable or odd marketplace at the moment?
um, Good question. It's definitely a challenging one. I guess we looks like, so first of all, looks like things are very fluctuate a lot, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not like super clear what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's like the whole ecosystem is a little bit uncertain, I would say.
yeah,
And we can see that from like from the different index that there's online, right? Like the fear index as well. It's pretty high right now, I feel like. But overall, I would say by focusing on the core, on the core on what you can do and the way that you can do it, I think it's like just the key. So keep focusing on like your core area, which is the United States. We only sell in the United States and Canada, and we make product in the United States. I think that's what's important as well. So for us, um, that's where our focus is. And then if we really want to go, um, you know, cross border, even if we do a little bit like with UK right now to like a third party like retailers, I think it's still gonna be something like open for discussion for the next like probably something we're probably gonna discuss or like think about in the next 3 4 years. But for now, our focus remain like the whole
yeah.
country.
No, that's great. Never, I think that with that economic uncertainty, there's there's a thing that we can look at and we're like, well, everybody needs food, so they're going to
Mhm.
keep buying groceries. Kettle and Fire is a premium, food product, and there are cheaper options out there. I'm curious in economic instability and uncertainty, how do you continue to, with success, by the way, drive home people adopting and continuing to purchase a, a premium broth product? Like it's so cool. Like I'm again, I'm a fan, Nico, and that's why I'm like, it's so interesting to me what you're up to. So, how are you continuing to drive that home as people try and think about where can I cut budget here and there and everywhere as inflation rises, as I'm uncertain? What are you guys doing to kind of combat that?
Yeah, so from a pricing standpoint, or in general, I would say that I think that most of the people like they can decide to cut like spending in certain area, but I feel like that the food and the quality product, I'm not sure. Like part of me wonder if like those type of premium products are the one that they're not gonna cut. And I hope so, right? Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping, of course, in the long term. But in the sense like me thinking about me as a consumer as well, I might gonna, switch from let's say maybe Whole Food to Walmart, right? Like maybe I'm gonna go to a different retailer or like to Costco now that we are at Costco because we can get a better pricing there. But I would not trade the quality of the product or like the brand. I would probably look elsewhere from like a retailer standpoint that maybe can give me a better discount or like the fidelity card, etc. But I wouldn't like switch completely personally brand, especially if I know that the brand that I'm using is like and especially because me as a target audience, I'm very focused on my health and wellness, right? So you know that a different product is kind of bad for you and, it's making people sick, let's say. Meanwhile, what we make is not the case. So I'd stick with like what I know is like good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, sweet Nico, I appreciate you so much for being on the podcast. If people want to find you, they want to learn more about Kettle and Fire, where can they go to do that?
Kettle and Fire, just website, pretty easy, or like Twitter as well there. But for myself, mostly LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. You can just search me for my full name, so that should be pretty quick and easy.
I love it. I love it. Well, Nico, thank you for being on the podcast and thank you for running unicorn campaigns.
Right on.